Ashley Micciche has been telling some of her financial planning clients to retire as early as they can. Here's why. How did this idea get started?
Well, I've heard a lot over the years of the FIRE movement, which is financial independence, retire early. And it's interesting. I don't know about you, but it was very big maybe 8 to 10 years ago. And I haven't heard as much about it since. I think, maybe COVID, inflation, some of the macro things that are outside of our control have maybe prevented people from retiring super early. But FIRE is really about retiring as early as you can, making work optional. A lot of people who are quote unquote retired might still be working, but it's their choice to retire, and they don't need to continue to work in order to live the lifestyle that they've built for themselves. So it requires a lot of aggressive saving, if you're trying to retire by your 40, 45, 50. So it's always sort of been on my radar. I'm kind of a workaholic. Like, even if I am sitting around the house, I really cannot sit down, and I have to be doing something, even if it's not work, if it laundry, taking care of my kids, there's always something to be doing. And so personally, I don't have any aspirations to retire early, but I know I work with a lot of clients and I talk to a lot of people who, maybe they've already been working for 20, 30 years. They're getting to the point where they're burned out, but they don't think that they can retire. And so I think, once you have the financial piece of it taken care of, you don't want to throw caution to the wind when it comes to the financial part of your own retirement. But as long as that is on the way to where it needs to be, I think people can feel confident in planning for an earlier retirement. There's a lot more things to think about when you might live in retirement for 40 years instead of 25 or 30. And there's certainly significant risks with that, but there's a lot of upside too. And so I think it's important to think about both sides of that, both the negatives and how it could affect you, and what it means to make your investments in your portfolio last for 40 years, but also what some of the main benefits are. And so I think that's why it's important to have this conversation and what we're talking about today.
And you've had some clients that have retired early, some that have not. So you've put together 5 reasons to retire as early as you can. What's reason number one?
Yeah, reason number one, I think this is the most important, is just to be able to spend more time with family and friends. And a lot of people, as they get late in their career, their kids are grown up, they get married, and they start having grandkids. And I find that, especially with my female clients, but a lot of my male clients too, when they have grandkids, it almost kind of, there's something that switches in their brain, and all of a sudden they're like, I want to be able to prioritize this, especially if they live far away. Maybe they can't, because of their work schedule, they can't go and spend 2 or 3 weeks across the country with their grandkids, but they want to do that. And so I find that, they're starting now to get pulled in this other direction towards a more relaxed lifestyle where they have that freedom and flexibility to be able to spend more time with their grandkids. So I would say, grandkids is kind of maybe the most important push, but I would say relationships in general, to prioritize that is what drives a lot of people to an earlier retirement, and for good reason. I don't know if you've heard about this, Jeremy, but there's this, it's one of the longest studies on health and happiness, and it's a Harvard study. I think it's the Harvard study of adult development. And it's a long-running study, and they follow people their entire lives. And what they consistently find is that across different health, different socioeconomic statuses, whatever those other factors are, it's the quality of relationships in one's life that primarily determines not just your longevity, but the quality of that. And I find it really interesting that, I think we all find this in our own lives, is that if our relationships are where they should be, we're generally more fulfilled and more satisfied than when maybe things are difficult in relationships. And so I think prioritizing relationships is a very important thing to do as you are thinking about the timing of your retirement. And if that means that you retire a couple extra years early so that you can help out and take care of your grandkids, then that I think that would be a really good reason to retire early.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's sitting on their deathbed saying, I wish I had retired later. They're usually saying, I wish I retired earlier. And I'm thinking kind of beginning part of adult life. Back 14 years ago, my wife and I just married for about a year. We talked through and said, okay, we're going to start trying for kids a year from now. Well, then within a couple of days, I was asked to go and help with something called a death claim. So someone who was like 60, 65 had died, and so their kids were inheriting the money. They needed somebody to go help them out with that. So I went and met these, like a 25-year-old and his 23-year-old sister inheriting the money. Dad had just died. And I was asking them about themselves, and the 25-year-old said, oh, I just got married because we were going to wait, but then my dad's dying. We want to get married beforehand. And of course, it was like a 45-minute drive back to our house. And the entire 45 minutes back, I'm thinking, wait a second, we're waiting one extra year to have kids, which is one less year I get to have with these kids. So by the time I get home, I convince myself that no, we need to start having kids sooner, not later. And now we get an extra year out of hanging out with our kids. So it works on the retirement side as well, that you get to have more time with your family and friends if you're spending less time at work.
Right, exactly.
Yep. So what's number two? What's the number two reason to retire as
To
early as you can?
Yeah, the number two one, this is what I hear most often from my clients as their stated reason why they want to retire early, and that is because they want to enjoy more healthy and active years. I have clients, I have people I know in my personal life where my grandpa did this. He worked all the way up until 65, but he had a pretty difficult life. He fought in the Korean War. He worked for many, many years. And so by the time he got to his retirement date, collected his gold watch and his pension and was out, he was so tired. He was just tired. So he didn't have any energy, and his health wasn't that great by then. And so I always looked at that even as a little kid, because he retired around the time I was maybe 5, 6 years old. And I just remember that really stood out to me even as a young child, that, wow, it's unfortunate that he has all this free time now. He can do whatever he wants. He's not having to go to work every day, but he mainly sits in his chair and watches Fox News and football. And, he didn't seem too terribly happy about any of that. So that always stuck with me. And then, I talk to clients and they say, we don't know how long we're going to live. We don't know how long we're still going to be able to get on an airplane and fly or go to Italy for a month. And there's a lot of walking involved in that. It's not easy to, I'm on the West Coast, so getting on a plane for 14 hours to fly to Europe is also difficult on your body. So I don't see a lot of people in their 80s on airplanes. And so enjoying those active, healthy years that we don't know how long we're going to have to be able to travel, and prioritizing doing some of those bucket list things. So, yeah, I think a lot of people who are getting close to retirement are conscious of that and wanting to do that. But there's still this huge reluctance to retire and kind of pull the trigger on doing that. And they'll continue to work and work and work. And that really eats into those healthy and active years that they have left.
Yeah, it's interesting. My wife and I somewhat complain about her parents that they act like they're 30 and they talk like they're 90. Um, and it's just kind of funny. They have no medicines or great health, but they talk like, well, I don't know if I'll be around 5 years from now. Like, you will probably be around 5 years from now. Although that is actually a good attitude for them to take, and that I better do it now because they might not be around 5 years from now. We just had somebody in our gym. He's probably the healthiest person in the gym, and he was 72. Apparently did a bunch of push-ups and then just died, just on the spot. They had some medical emergency that was.
Wow.
And here he is, a healthy person, right? Probably in great. I mean, looked like he was in great health, and died way too young. knowing him a little bit, I know he retired earlier, I believe, and he spent a lot of time with family and friends. So it's better him that he probably retired ahead of time. He could have been working at 72 and never got the chance to enjoy that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good reminder that yeah, you never get healthier. I think it seems like so. Go ahead and take the time when you have it.
Exactly.
Yep, good. Well, what else have you come across as talking to your clients about reasons to retire as
Yeah.
early as you can?
One is that I use the example of my grandfather. When he retired, this was in the late 80s. You didn't have the option to work part time or kind of transition out of work. It was either I'm working full time or I'm fully retired, and there's no in between. But things have obviously changed a lot. And, between consulting and part time work and, this sort of gig economy that we're in now, there is a huge demand for older, experienced, expert workers in a lot of different fields. So, my husband is in accounting, you and I are in financial planning. Both of those industries, there's a huge shortage of qualified, experienced workers. And so I tell my clients sometimes who are considering this, it's like you can basically put in a lot of these jobs that you might be considering or consulting or part-time work, you can create your own sort of list of criteria. Like I will work under these conditions because you have so much, you pull so much weight there because you are in such high demand. And it's not just certain service businesses like ours, but I know, plumbers, electricians, there are tons of skilled professions out there, not just desk jobs, where you can work part time, you don't have to work full time, and you can be a valuable asset to whoever you're going to work for, but also be able to say, okay, well, I'm going to set my own schedule. I'm only working these hours. I'm going to take this much time off. And so you can have the best of both worlds because there's a lot of people out there, and I think I would put myself in this where I don't want to retire at 50. I probably wouldn't want to retire at 60 or 65, but if I could structure some type of schedule that allowed me to work part time but still have the time to be able to spend with family or play golf 3 days a week or play pickleball or whatever it is that I want to do at that age, I can do that and not have to work 40 or 50 hours a week.
Yeah, it's amazing too that you had that choice. It felt like that was the only choice, and probably was the only choice 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I run into people that are thinking they don't have a choice; they have to go full bore and then quit. And I still tell them, go ask your boss. They'd probably like to keep you around. And it's interesting too because we're talking about retiring early to enjoy your health, enjoy your family and friends. A lot of studies show that the longer you work, the longer you live.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a bit of that is we had Dr. Jordan Grumman on. He talked about how you're having a purpose is really what gets you motivated and having an ability to have a healthy and active retirement. And I have Fritz Gilbert on too, the Retirement Manifesto, where he'd encourage everyone to retire as early as you can. He's loving retirement, and yet he's also probably working part-time,
Mm-hmm.
both for money through his podcast, blog, and the book, but just volunteering. And so he's got a lot of part-time work where he's not getting paid, and that probably goes into Dr. Grumman's purpose part of it. So that's a positive development that we don't have to work ourselves to death and then retire to the chair and
Yes.
watch the TV all day.
Mm-hmm.
Right. All right, we've got two more quick tips. Your podcast, we'll talk about that as a retirement quick tip, so you can check out Ashley's podcast. So you've got two more quick tips for us about reasons to retire as early as you can.
Yes. So one is I think a lot of people they think that the more that they have, and this may not be a conscious thought, but it certainly drives their behavior and what they do, that the accumulation of more will mean that they're going to be happier. And for most people, I think the key is finding, well, how much is enough? What is enough for me? Not to maximize the amount of wealth I can accumulate, but what is enough? And And I always, a couple years ago, I don't know, are you familiar with the term memento mori? It means
I haven't.
it
No.
means remember your death. And it got its start, this is hundreds of years ago in the Christian tradition, where people, you want to act today, remember that one day you will die. And but it's gained more, I would say, broad popularity even among non-Christians about remembering your death, and to kind of, it's sort of that bucket list thing, like, okay, well, I know I'm going to die someday, so I'm going to make sure that I sort of check all these boxes. But I think more broadly than that, no one living 100 years from now is going to know who you are, know who I am, know who any of these listeners are. And I think we pursue, and I make this mistake as well, like we pursue greatness where it maybe doesn't matter so much. Like, I want to achieve wealth, I want power, I want prestige. And I think a lot of people who continue working longer, I find this a lot with business owners, is that, their business is their legacy. And so they might work, till 70, 75, 80 plus years old, and spend their entire lives working, because their identity is wrapped up in who they are as a business owner. You were talking, just a couple minutes ago about, this thing about purpose and fulfillment. And yes, it is true. Many of us have deep purpose and meaning in our work, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we also have identities outside of who we are as a podcast host or a business owner. I'm a business owner myself, and you have, it is sort of this other child. But I think we can become too attached to these things, and work longer than we maybe should in the pursuit of more. And also with the idea that, like, I want to preserve a legacy, but it's like in 2 or 3 generations, like no one visits your grave anymore, no one knows who you are. And so you're sort of chasing the wind, and it's this thing that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. So if you memento mori, remember that you will die and you can't take any of it with you, then I think it helps to reframe some of the decisions that you make as you get closer to retirement.
Yeah, I like that phrase, memento mori. I'm gonna have to look a bit more into it, but it reminded me a bit of a book I read and did a review on of Die with Zero, where it's talking about you need to maximize your happiness, not your investments. Kind of a different way to say it is make yourself happy, not your spreadsheet happy.
Yeah,
And I'm
like
thinking
that.
too of with Fritz Gilbert when he was on talking. He said, a lot of people that are retiring, they think like if I make the spreadsheet work out perfectly, everything's going to be okay in retirement. But if you're trying to maximize the spreadsheet, working one extra year will always put more money on the spreadsheet. So
Mm-hmm.
you'll never find the reason then to stop working if that's what you're trying to focus on. So this idea of having enough, knowing that you are enough, and finding that purpose as opposed to finding that extra dollar.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Good. All right. What's your final retirement quick tip for reasons to retire as early as you can?
Yeah, I think this sort of wraps up, and it's related to the other topics, which is achieving life satisfaction. So, I guess another way to think about this is to have time freedom. So, throughout our whole lives, I mean, basically from the day we enter kindergarten, through all the way through your working life, with maybe a few summers off here and there, you are beholden to somebody else's schedules. You are beholden to a school schedule, a work schedule, and I think the time freedom aspect and having that flexibility is a huge reason to retire earlier, so that you're not subject to a daily commute. You're not subject to, being at the office or at work site at a certain time. And I there was a study done. Actually, it was a analysis of like 400 different studies, and they found that the happiest age on average was 70. And I thought that's interesting. They didn't the analysis didn't dig too much into the details, other than hypothesizing that, you have a lot of, you're really happy in in childhood for the most part, unless you have a traumatic childhood. And then our happiness is like this U shape. So it kind of starts declining in adolescence, and then it really bottoms out. Like statistically, I'm at the unhappiest time of my life right now because I'll be 40 next year, and like late 40s to or late 30s to mid to late 40s is sort of that bottom of that U, and then happiness starts to increase again, and that makes sense. You know, you have a lot of stressors, but people in their 70s that tend to be more financially secure. We know that financial stress is a huge reason why people are not happy. But also, I think most 70-year-olds are retired, and that is why they're happier because they have this time freedom. They can pursue the things that they want to do. They're not as stressed about money. So if you are in a position, again, the financial piece is key to all of this, is making sure that you can retire and not worry about outliving your money, but to have that freedom and that flexibility in your schedule and your life, is a great reason to retire as early as you can. And I think it's not until people get on the other side of retirement, and the clients that I talk to, that they realize how important this is just for their overall satisfaction and appreciation and reduction of stress in their lives.
Yeah, I'm a bit jealous of some of the 70-year-olds with the time freedom. My friend Sam turned me on to pickleball in the last 2 weeks, and so he and I show up at 7 a.m. Everyone else there is 70. We're right around 40, and I'm above, he's below. But I set my alarm for 8 o'clock, and as soon as my alarm buzzes, I need to head out. We're the first two people leaving, and they're kind of looking at me. Where are you going? I said, well, we got to get to the office here,
Yeah.
And they don't. They've all got their time freedom, so it's a great place to be. And of course, they're probably retired early and are healthy enough to go out and play pickleball.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've got one more question for you, Ashley. Before that, tell us, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, so my podcast, Retirement Quick Tips, it's a daily podcast, and that's a great way for people to get in touch. You can find it wherever you listen to podcasts. Another option is truenorthra.com. That's my website. The podcast is also linked there as well. And then I have a YouTube channel that I recently rebooted. I was doing videos and then I kind of stopped, and now I'm doing videos again, but the channel is called Retire with Ashley. So those are 3 different ways that people can get in touch if they're interested in hearing the podcast, learning more, or reaching out to me.
Yeah, perfect. And I'll have all those links in the show notes and the description. And of course, if you'd like more ideas on how to avoid big retirement mistakes, go ahead right now, click that subscribe button for us. All right, final question, Ashley. Tell us something about yourself that few people know about. And remember, this podcast is ready to clean.
Oh my goodness. Um, well, we were talking about golf. Few people know that I shot a 64, which is a very low score. I've never broke 70 ever in my life, except for the one time that I shot a 64. And so, for any of your golfer listeners, it's incredible. That day it was like the best day of my golfing life. The hole must have been a dinner plate because I was making every single putt, and it was a lot of fun. And my husband was there with me. And that was, oh gosh, that was in 2016, I think. So it's been a while, but yeah, I think that's not something that I walk around sharing because I don't want to feel like a braggart. But if you've ever played just in any sport, you have that round of your life or the game of your life. It's like an out of body experience, and it's a lot of fun. And it's a memory that I'll always cherish, especially because my husband was there to share it with me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you've got a witness, and I'm assuming 18 holes because I've shot 64 on 9 holes before. So, yeah.
I've done that too. Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
18.
Awesome. Way to go. Good job on that. And thanks for sharing all of your retirement quick tips, especially about how and why you might want to retire early. Thanks for coming on the show, Ashley.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Absolutely. And thank you for listening to the Retirement Reveal podcast. We believe if you know more about your money, you will feel better about your money and you will make better money decisions. Hi, I'm Jeremy Keil, owner of Keil Financial Partners. And if you're interested in seeing how we help our clients get more income, pay less in taxes, and avoid big retirement mistakes, make sure to go to keilfp.com. That's KEILFP.com.